Thank you for taking time to take this course by PsychArmor on firearms and suicide in military-connected community. 5 things medical professionals need to know. True Community Care is a level 5 We Honor Veterans partner, and with that we have a commitment to educating our clinicians around veteran-specific care. This is one of those ways we do that. Thank you again for taking the time to engage in this education.
Hi, I'm Dr. Ted Bonar. I'm a clinical psychologist.
And I'm Dr. Heidi Kraft. I'm a clinical psychologist and Navy combat veteran. And I'm also a gun owner. Ted and I are old friends. And we share a true passion for the health and well-being of our country's heroes and their families.
In this short course, we will tell you 5 things you, as medical professionals, need to know about firearms and suicide in our military-connected community. We hope this will provide you with a solid understanding of the problem and an optimistic and action-oriented view of your role in the solution.
Number 1, firearms and suicide are directly linked. While you probably know this at some level, the data are pretty staggering. And while veterans make up only 8% of the country's population, they account for nearly 14% of its suicide deaths. There are a number of theories for this high rate in our military-connected community, but to put it simply, many of them include the fact that veterans tend to have access to and use firearms when attempting suicide. In recent years, 70% of male veterans and 42% of female veterans who died by suicide used firearms as the method. These are higher rates than non-veterans and significantly higher for women veterans compared to women non-veterans. What are the reasons? One is that veterans have military training and experience with firearms. The use of weapons is not an abstract idea for veterans. It's a tangible, concrete experience, and many believe this is the primary reason for the increased rate. However, owning a firearm does not appear to increase thoughts of suicide. The problem is that a suicide attempt with a firearm is fatal 90% of the time. The lethality of firearms simply cannot be argued.
Number 2, there's a widely held belief that people who are thinking of suicide will find a way to kill themselves no matter what, even if their preferred method of a suicide attempt is hard to get. Many people, medical professionals included, believe that if one removes access to a planned method for suicide, a person in a suicidal crisis will just find another method. Heidi and I are here to tell you this is false, and it's important for us to dispel the myth. It's critical to note that only a small fraction of those who think about suicide make an attempt. It's not that thinking about suicide isn't upsetting or concerning. Of course it is. But what it means is that people who attempt suicide are experiencing an extraordinary amount of psychological pain. It's usually something that's been building, and it's something that a person has thought quite a bit about. This generally means that they've also considered the method they will use. They tend to have access for their methods. And these reasons, the reasons for the methods, can be quite personal. Sometimes a person will choose a method simply because they're familiar with how it will work. Sometimes it's because they believe it will be effective. Sometimes it's because they want to find something they believe will relieve them of pain. So a person's chosen method, it's not made on a whim or impulsively. When there is a barrier between a person and their chosen method, there are fewer suicide attempts. There's much scientific evidence that shows this. Medication provided in blister packs, safety nets under bridges, and even the switch from toxic to non-toxic oven gas in Great Britain in the early 60s are all examples of efforts to address high-rate suicide attempts. and each has lowered the suicide deaths following implementation. Some research has also focused on suicide attempt survivors. People with lived experience often say that if one small thing had interfered with their plan, they would not have found another way. And since most people who survive a suicide attempt do not make a second attempt, placing time and distance between a person and a method of suicide is a crucial step. So what does all of this mean for the service member, veteran, or any other person who might be thinking about suicide with a gun? Honestly, we can keep this simple. Firearms are effective as a method of suicide, and if we help put time and distance between a suicidal person and a weapon, there's a dramatic reduction in the risk of suicide. Having a simple conversation about the safe storage of firearms for a veteran or anyone else, it could be life-saving.
Number 3, there are many reasons why people own guns. Research tells us that most of them fall into 2 categories: fear of danger and wanting to protect their family. This is actually really helpful for you as providers to know. It can help you start those tough conversations that can save your patients' lives. We know that discussion about firearms can be really, really difficult. It's important to stress that the type of conversation we are talking about today, how to prevent the suicide of a veteran, service member, or anyone else, is not a political conversation, and certainly shouldn't be an argument or a challenge. Knowing why someone owns firearms can really open the door to a meaningful conversation when that person is at risk. As a provider, you may have the opportunity to be a trusted member of a veteran's medical team. In that role, that man or woman who chose to wear the uniform of this country entrusts his or her care to you. Whether you work in primary care or a specialty, most of you have been trained to be on the lookout for warning signs of suicide risk. Our training tells us to ask about history of suicide attempts, family history of suicide, history of mental health symptoms, diagnoses, and treatment. Regardless of whether your patient is a veteran, we ask about trauma history and history of head injury or substance use. We learn about our patients' stressors, don't we? During our time getting to know these veterans, we hear about challenges that are at the forefront of their minds: financial worries, relationship troubles, job stress, trouble with the law, and medical illness. And then, because we've been trained to do it, we ask our patients directly if they are thinking about suicide. This is where things get worrisome for some providers. If a patient answers yes, the next questions should be about intent and plan. This includes asking about the method the patient plans to use. If the patient mentions a firearm here, we need to find out if there is a weapon and ammunition in the house.
Many providers say this is very uncomfortable to talk about. They're worried that their veteran patients will shut down as soon as this conversation starts, believing we will try to take their weapons away. It turns out this discussion doesn't have to feel that way between you and your patients. We recommend at this point you ask your veteran patient what the weapon means to him or her. These conversations should be a beginning, not an end. And if we have been talking about suicide, this is where we can start to discuss whether the gun owner might make any adjustments to storage methods while there's any concern of suicide. This is so important. This conversation is about safety for the veteran or the person you're speaking with. It's not political or about constitutional rights or policy. It's all about safety, and we can have this conversation with them so that you can find the best solution.
Number 4, there are different types of gun owners, and your military-connected patients have a special relationship with their firearms. This is where your humility about military culture and your sensitivity to the fact that culture matters to your active duty and veteran patients and their families comes in. For military-connected people, the protection offered by firearms is not theoretical. They were trained to use firearms during the service, and for many, these are an extension of their training and preparation. as they felt protected while carrying a sidearm in uniform during high stress or dangerous situations, they often tell us that feeling translates to their lives once they have transitioned out of the military. Importantly, for military-connected people, the lethality of firearms is not theoretical. They know firsthand that weapons can be deadly. Their choice of firearms as weapons during suicide attempts is intentional, making it even more important to have this conversation about the safety and security of those firearms and how to put time and space between our military patients and their weapons and ammunition during a suicidal crisis.
Number 5. Safe storage of firearms is an effective, evidence-based method of reducing the likelihood of a death by firearm suicide. It directly reduces risk, both to self and others. Different methods of safe storage of firearms will work for different people. Some people might only need a cable lock, and someone else can hold the key. Some people might prefer a gun safe with a biometric lock, or a combination lock that can be changed during a crisis. Other people might focus on separating the ammunition from the weapon, and some people might choose, on their own, to remove the firearm from the house until a crisis passes. There are many options of safe storage of a person's firearm, and it's important to have these conversations with your patients. Just like no two veterans or military-connected patients are exactly alike, you will find you and your patients will likely come up with several strategies to put time and distance between a loaded weapon and a person thinking about suicide. The important thing is to start the conversation. Your patient will know at that point that you are not shying away from the discussion and that you do not judge him or her.
In summary, we know that all of you are taking this course because you want to provide outstanding care to your military-connected patients. You know that service members and veterans do present a unique challenge to us as clinicians when talking about risk for suicide. For many of them, firearms are an important part of their culture, and the lethality of their weapons is not theoretical.
Ask about access to firearms and ammunition. Ask what those weapons mean to your patients. And collaborate with your patient about safe storage of firearms during a crisis. We know that together, as a community of medical professionals who care for our nation's veterans, service members, and their families, we are part of the solution. Thank you for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you for taking the time to learn about this important topic and about our nation's military, veterans, and their family members.
Now I'm going to share a few role plays that demonstrate some of the things addressed in the educational video.
You told me that the shotgun is in the closet and the pistol's in the drawer, right? Have you and your husband talked about maybe getting a safe for those weapons?
We have. I want a safe, but my husband feels that it would be too difficult to access them in a safe.
Okay. It's important to your husband that your family is safe. We've also been talking that you might have been having a tough time lately, right? So I'm wondering if we can explore some ways to even temporarily see what we can do about where those firearms are.
Absolutely.
Have you thought of any other storage methods besides a safe?
Yes, we actually received a cable lock at a suicide prevention fair at work once.
Okay. Have you used it? Have you tried to use it yet?
Yes.
Okay, so is it on...
We have one for both.
You have one for both?
Mm-hmm.
So where are the keys for those?
They are in another drawer that's in our room.
Okay. I'm wondering, for now, while you're having a tough time, I'm wondering if maybe there's another place to put the key.
Yeah, I think if I put them, I guess I'd have to think about where I would put them because they would be in my house. So,
Okay.
yeah, take some thought.
Where else might that be?
Maybe with my parents, but then then we wouldn't be able to use them.
Right.
Should we need to? But
Okay.
I think for now that'd be fine.
Temporarily.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Weapon?
Yeah, definitely. Personal protection, yeah, that's definitely a primary reason.
start this one over.
So you mentioned that you own a weapon. Can you tell me about what kinds of weapons you have in your home?
Yes, I only have one. It's a 9mm handgun, mainly just safety reasons. So
Okay.
yeah,
So personal protection is the primary reason you would say you have the weapon?
yeah, definitely personal protection. Yeah, that's definitely a primary reason.
Okay. Having that weapon in your home, I'm hearing you say that makes you feel safe.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Does that have anything to do with the fact that you were in the military?
It probably yes and no. Probably why it kind of started in order to push me to get one, but yeah.
As a military veteran, what does being a gun owner mean to you?
As a military veteran, being a gun owner, it's important to me. You know, to have that right and to still feel, you know, like I can fend for myself when I may have to, or it just becomes something that, you know, you can't really detach from. You feel like you need that.
So it's a big part of your culture then.
Yeah, when you put it like that, definitely. Yeah.
And the next role play.
So you mentioned that there's a weapon in the house.
I did.
Can you tell me what kinds of weapons you have in your home?
We have a shotgun and a pistol.
Okay. And when you look back on your time in the Army, what does that experience mean to you as far as being a current gun owner today?
Well, I thought that I would feel more comfortable with it, but understanding how dangerous they can be and knowing people who've been harmed by them, I am kind of nervous about having them in my home.
This is an important conversation for us to have because you have been struggling lately. What we talk about sometimes is thinking through ways together how to ensure that you're as safe as you can possibly be when things are tough. So tell me about how those weapons are stored.
We have one in a closet and one in a drawer, and they have cable locks on them.
They do have cable locks.
Yes.
And the keys are where?
They're in a different drawer in the same room.
Okay. Would you be willing, when things are tough, to collaborate with your husband? Maybe the three of us can talk about having him have access to those keys and not you.
Yeah,
Just when things are tough.
absolutely.
And the last role play.
So you have a combination lock.
Right, that's correct.
Okay. While things are tough, could we ask your wife to change the combination? So she has the combination while we make sure we get through this hard time?
Yeah, I think we could do that. I think so.
Thank you so much for taking time to participate in the Firearms and Suicide and Military Connected Community. 5 things medical professionals need to know. I hope that you have found this content helpful. We appreciate all the work that you're doing out in the field. Thank you.